Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I would like to welcome all attendees in the last session. It's definitely not the least. We have very interesting topics this evening, and I would like to introduce to you the first speaker of this event, of this last session, Ms. Siham Al-Zayed. Ms. Siham has obtained a Bachelor of Science degree at King Saud University and achieved her Master degree of Science in Healthcare Management at the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland. Ms. Al-Zayed is currently the Director of Total Quality Management at the National Health Laboratory, SSCC, MOH in Riyadh. She is also the consultant of Assistant Deputy Minister of Laboratory and Blood Bank in MOH Riyadh. Ms. Al-Zayed's talk this evening is about individualized quality control plan. Ms. Siham.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم جميعا. يسعد لي مساكم. Good evening everybody. إن شاء الله محاضرتنا اليوم أتمنى تكون لطيفة وخفيفة عليكم كلكم. Mr. Ali, if you can just maximize المحاضرة slides. Yes, thank you so much. المحاضرة اليوم أنا اخترت عنوانها بعناية اللي هو Individualized Quality Control Plan IQCB. topic دخل جديد. This is a new requirement being introduced into CAB checklist, all common checklists since 2016. It was mandatory, one of the mandatory requirements as applicable. And since then, a lot of confusions between laboratories, between even states in America and CMS and CLIA in America, how it can be implemented and if it is a mandate requirements or optional requirements. So that's why I have chosen this topic, and I hope I have simplified it to you as much as I can. So just to correct my current employer, because of the recent change, the public national health lab being changed to public health lab under the umbrella of Public Health Authority. So a history about the IQCB, how it's been introduced and implemented. 1967, CMS, which is the Committee Clinical Medicare and Medicare Services, created the CLIA, which is the Clinical Lab Improvement Act, in 1967, and this committee being implemented or created to regulate laboratory that perform Medicare billing and or engage in interest commerce. In 1988, the Congress passed the CLIA from to change the name or to revise the name of CLIA to Clinical Lab Improvement Amendments in 1988, which further regulates personnel performing cytology examination and set standards for all aspects of the lab testing and lab testing personnel, patient specimen collection and processing, quality control, proficiency testing, and quality assurance for all lab disciplines. This is the aim of CLIA 88 and the update requirements. In 2003, CMS introduced equivalent quality control. Here where it started. Why CMS introduced this program? To offer laboratories an option to decrease the frequency of external controls for non-wave tests that have an internal control. So they have they have introduced this equivalent quality control just for the from cost effective, just to make the cost of internal quality control or external quality control less and cheaper. So that's why they they introduced this mandate. In 2013, CMS revised the clear interpretive guidelines to include risk assessment, because some of the laboratories have decreased the frequency of quality control tested and have decreased the levels that it has to be used as per clear, which is 2 levels at bare minimum for non-wave testing. CMS figured out that they need to do a risk assessment or to do some study assessment to evaluate if the processes are working fine and results are reliable with this reduction in quality control requirements. So in 2013, the CMS asked CLSI to write guidelines about quality control based on risk assessment, which is developed in 2011. And in 2014, CLIA introduced the individual quality IQCB. So it started officially in 2014, and it's announced the laboratories would have 2 years for the transition to introduce it in their lab, but it was optional that time. In 2016, for a non-wave test that has an internal quality, and lab has the choice to either follow the CMS CAP default for QC frequency, performing external QC each day or patient testing, or implement an IQCP for test assay. So it was an optional if the lab does not follow the CAP or CLIA requirements for QC regulations, then they have to do the IQCP for non-wave testing. What is IQCP? It is a documented strategy to mitigate and prevent errors in testing that describes the practices, resources, and sequences of specified activities to control the quality of the particular measuring system or measurement process to ensure intended processes are met. In another way, it is a strategic plan that take care of the quality of the whole process of specimen, from pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical, with all the policies related or quality control processes related, to ensure the results are accurate and reliable. The big concept of IQCP is to prevent and detect, prevention of failures, being a proactive, and how by detection of non-conformities or error in timely manner. So I have to prevent any failure that could happen by detecting in advance source of errors or errors that could happen on a timely manner before something wrong goes wrong. As accreditation requirement, College of American Pathologists have 5 requirements, mandates. If you are doing IQCP in your lab, then you have to satisfy all these 5 requirements. The inspector, when they come to your lab, they need to see the list of all IQCP plans and the risk assessment of those plans, quality plan elements, quality plan approval and the elements of the plan, and the assessment and monitoring of this IQCP. So it applies to these requirements, 5 requirements apply to laboratories using IQCP approved by the lab director, of course, for non-waved. Waved, by the way, it's not applicable for wave testing. To reduce external control analysis to a frequency less than the limited defined in CLIA regulation and CAP checklist. Here, where the confusion comes always from the lab people. They always ask when I can use or I should do IQCP. IQCP, if you are performing a test, a non-wave test, with less regulation or less frequency from the CAP or clear requirements, which is usually at a minimum, you have to run 2 levels of quality control for each non-wave testing with a frequency based on the manufacturer instruction or accreditation requirements. The frequency, it could be more than 1 time a day, it could be daily, weekly, whatever your manufacturer instruction asks you to do. If you are doing your test with less than less than 2 levels or less frequency as per the manufacturer instructions, then you have to do IQCP. Development of an IQCP only impact quality control requirements. All other checklist requirements remain unchanged and applicable. So the IQCP only applicable to the requirements related to quality control. Other requirements related to calibration, maintenance, reagent, whatever requirements, it's not applicable. Maybe some of you that will say, let's make the calibration instead of monthly basis, we can do it on quarterly basis, and we can do IQCP. No, this is not applicable. Don't minimize your calibration or whatever your maintenance requirements and do IQCP. This doesn't apply. So eligibility, who should do it? Non-wave tests, of course, that employ an internal electrode procedural built-in. If your system has a built-in quality control, you have to do it as a non-wave system. Exception for that is the microbiology media and reagents used for microbial identification and susceptibility testing may implement an IQCP as defined in the microbiology checklist. So exception for this requirement for the non-wave testing is the micro. Many questions before came to me from micro people. When or should we do IQCP because we have some minimum or less than the requirements, QC requirements? So to answer you, I have put in the last slide one of the references. It has a list of all the micro and non-wave tests that which is mandate the IQCP or optional or doesn't need IQCP. It's really a good reference. I encourage everybody to go get it and read it. Second, eligibility is the test performed in a specialized other than anatomic pathology, any other specialty lab, but not anatomic pathology, which is histopathology and cytopathology, unless there is some link, some tests are done or performed in anatomic pathology and other discipline. This is applicable to them. So the implementation procedure or step, first of all, if I want to do IQCP, I have to do risk assessment. Risk assessment, there is 2 articles also, I put it in the last slide, their link. I encourage everybody to read it. You have 2 articles in the now as a reference for you. There is CNSI guidelines AB23 and on the left side, the CDC CMS development of IQCB step by step. These are an excellent reference for you. It makes your life easy in implementing your IQCP. What's the difference between these 2? CMS and CDC, they said risk assessment is the identification and evaluation of potential failures and source of errors in testing process. This is their definition of risk assessment. But CNSI guidelines, it's the definition of the risk assessment, which is everybody, all of us, we know about, familiar with, is the risk analysis, which is identification of hazards, estimating the probability and severity, this is the real definition of risk assessment, and risk evaluation, that the results from measuring system failure. So I put a quote from Westgard website. He was comparing between these 2 articles, and he ended up with this: the CMS CDC approach is a sleight of hand solution to the complexity of risk assessment. Just call it risk assessment, but skip the actual risk assessment step and instead do something similar. Yani, in another word, the CMS CDC make the risk assessment procedure much easier, friendly for the people to do it, more than the complexity that's illustrated in the CLSI guidelines. Also, in the CLSI guidelines, this is the life cycle of risk assessment process. It starts with hazard identification, and after identification, we have to distinguish, is it the severity and the probability, and then we have to estimate these, are they acceptable or not, and evaluate them. If they are not acceptable, what should we do, and control the risk control, which is what's the action need to be done to, if there is any extra or any new source of error, then we have to catch it and do our hazard identification and put the action plan for it in advance. What are the components of risk assessment? There are 5 components for risk assessment, and under each one I have put the potential errors. So in the risk assessment, you have to write down 5 components, which is, they call it failure modes, and then under each failure mode there is a potential errors, which is we have to take an action or be proactive to get a solution for these. I will take, because of the time, I will take one of those. Specimen, for example. We have the specimen is the failure mode, and what is the potential error could to the specimen or could happen? Patient preparation, this is a source of error. Specimen collection, specimen labeling, storage, transportation, and rejection of the specimen. So if I have any problem in those stages, if there is a mislabel or wrong storage, or I have draw from a wrong patient, this is an error which could cause a very severe or serious problem for the patient management or patient safety. This is the one of the failure mode tool. If I want to do the previous these 5 and I want to have to write down those potential errors, there is an excellent tool which is everybody, I'm sure they know about it. It's a Fishbone. Fishbone, in the head of the fish, I have to write, I need, my results are incorrect. This is my problem. Why? I have put in the blue zones, this is from CLSI, the 5 components, and after each, under each component, it's been written the failure modes or potential errors could happen from these failure modes. So Fishbone is an excellent tool to do this. Where can I find resources for information? If I want to do a good risk assessment and look at for the potential errors, I have many resources or references I can look at to find out the potential errors, which is regulatory requirements, manufacturer and package inserts, which is we have to take attention to the QC frequency, specimen requirements, limitations, manufacturer operational manual, troubleshooting guide, manufacturer alerts and bulletins, verification or establishment, which is the method validation, testing personnel qualification, we have to look at it, QC data, BT data, quality assurance also data, which is sometimes one of the examples of quality assurance is the audit reports or inspection reports, scientific publications, it could be a source, or any other appropriate resource. Risk estimation, after I have identified my failure modes and errors or potential errors, I have to estimate when my probability and severity. There is 5 probability: frequent, which is it could happen once per week; probable, once per month; occasional, once per year; remote, once every few years; and improbable, which is one time in the life of this measuring system. The severity, it could be negligible, which is inconvenience, or minor or serious, critical or catastrophic. So we will link these two, and based on the relationship between the probability and severity, we will decide, is this acceptable or unacceptable, and it has we need to do an action. So in the next slide, I have put a diagram, one of the examples. If you are have this matrix and you would like to do a proper risk assessment, you need to do this diagram: severity of harm on the top and a probability. So if, for example, I have a frequent, more frequent problem, which is even if it is negligible, then it is unacceptable. Why? Because it is having a lot of time or many times. So I have to put an eye on it and do an action. But if it is occasionally and it is negligible, then it is acceptable because it's very rare happen and it's not that severe to the patient management. So this is how we monitor, how we evaluate the risk assessment or monitor it. So from this grid or matrix, we will do risk control. So each unacceptable risk, whatever unacceptable in this matrix, we have to measure the residual risk. If there is any residual risk that we couldn't catch it in the beginning in the risk assessment plan, then we have to catch it and put an action plan for it. Review the failure modes to verify the residual risk have been reduced as far as practical, to be clinically acceptable. Second step for implementation is, after I put my risk assessment, I have my severity and probability, then I can develop my plan. So what is a quality control plan? It describes practices, procedures, and resources needed by the lab to ensure the quality of testing processes. Also, it includes measures to assure the accuracy and reliability of the test result. So it is simply a plan. I put it for the 5 modes or 5 components of risk assessment to measure their efficiency, to measure that they are done in a very good and quality manner, in order not to get any error. And on the same time, I have already analyzed the hazard under each component, which is the potential errors, and I am reviewing my daily work in order to catch these errors before it happened. Create a plan that includes activities to reduce the likelihood of the failures, as I mentioned. Consider the amount of QC necessary based on the frequency and volume of patient testing, and it should meet regulatory, of course, and accreditation requirements. So what should be included in the IQC or quality control plan? The number, type, and frequency of quality control. It should include criteria for acceptable criteria for the quality control, monitoring of environmental and reagents, which is they are the component of the risk assessment, specimen quality, which is in regards to if it is hemolyzed, clotting, labeling and storage and whatever, which is specimen integrity. Instrument calibration maintenance records has to be checked. Training staff, of course, they have to be well trained, competent to do their daily work, and provisions for multiple identical devices and variation for use is covered under the IQCB. If I have multiple devices doing the same analytes, we have to measure the variations between them. Tips to remember: always remember in the IQC plan that it is a complete QCB must, if you have a very written QCB, it must provide you for immediate detection for errors for each phase of the testing process for the test. It has to specify the number and type frequency of the testing quality control and contain criteria to determine the acceptability, as I mentioned, and require the lab perform QC as specified by the manufacturer's instruction, but not less than the manufacturer instruction. We have to follow the manufacturer instructions. Indicate that your lab director reviewed, signed, and date the QC plan. This is very important because this plan is crucial to your results and to your patient safety or patient management. Some consideration, maybe some of you will ask, if I have multiple systems doing the same analyze, do I have to do a QC plan for each one of them? No, if they are doing the same exactly function, same analyze with no variations, then one risk assessment could be, one quality plan can be done for them, unless there is some analyze or test in the have some potential errors or failure mode that different from the other system, then you have to make it individual or separate. However, as I mentioned, if there is a differences, those differences have to have their own IQCB. The last step in implementation is the quality assessment. After I put my plan, I have to assess if the plan is efficient and effective. So what is the quality assessment? The quality assessment is used to determine if the quality activities you have put in place are working according to the plan. Lab personnel must establish a review system for ongoing monitoring of the effectiveness of the accused. For example, if I said we have to do the maintenance twice a week for this analyzer, then the assessment here is to review those maintenance being done on a good shape and on time. This is the review. Whatever I put in the plan, I have to check the records. I have to review the records that everything being met and done. Third, monitoring should include, but is not limited to, all 5 components. So we started risk assessment, it has 5 components, but maybe we will have more those 5 components as applicable. Re-evaluation of the QCP, it's a must. Sometimes after reviewing and we can see some failures or errors, then evaluations has to be or QC plan has to be re-evaluated and rewritten and re-approved in order to close all the source of errors. IQCB should include a schedule for re-evaluation, when I should re-evaluate my IQCB. This is to the lab decision. What about, what are the quality assessment review documents? What's the documents I should review? Those are some, I have listed some of the examples that I can review to make sure that my plan is doing a great job. QC data, it could be BT records, it could be a claim, customer complaints, it could be Saudi FDA recall reports, it could be temperature logs, turnaround time, KPIs, personal competency or training records. All these are a source of reviewing, and a source if there is any mistakes in the or any malpractice in those. After reviewing this, we have to fine-tune and revisit our risk assessment and plan and do it again. Sorry. Quality assessment benefit. Why should I do the assessment? To make sure that your QCP is working as expected, to monitor and identify errors and failures so you can take the appropriate active action, investigate the cause of error, and reassess your risk if indicated. This is when I said revisit your risk assessment, revisit your plan, evaluate whether any changes need to be made in your QCP. So this is the benefit. If you find during review some error or you detect an error, what the corrective action? Investigate the cause of the failure, perform a corrective and a preventive action to resolve the problem and reduce the risk of reoccurrence in the future, of course, and update the risk assessment with the new information and modify also the IQCB, as I mentioned, and document all these records, the corrections, the correspondence, corrective actions, and all patient results or whatever documented during the investigation. It has to be well documented and filed. This is the end of my presentation. This is the most important. Whatever I present is the most important. If you do it like this, then you are in a good shape. I have put some examples from the one of the documents, which is from CDC CMS, as an example of the 3 stages of implementation. Risk here, risk assessment. One of the we mentioned one of the components is testing personnel, right? So I'm sorry if the font size. This is a picture. I cannot maximize it. So testing personnel. What's the potential error could happen with the testing personnel? It can be there is no improper training and there is no regular competency assessment. These are two sources of errors. So are they?
Sorry to interrupt, Nihan, but your time is almost there. So would you please just?
I will wrap it up for within 1 minute if you allow me. Thank you. So these can be reduced. Yes. How we can reduce it, and then. Training, what is the frequency of the training? This is now the plan, the second slide. So the frequency of the training and competency and the corrective action and the monitoring of those plans or whatever. This is the timetable, I mean quality assessment table. So by this is the references. Please go and look at them. And I appreciate your attendance. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, whoever behind this activity. And I hope I can see you, inshallah, in another activity or conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Siham, for this wonderful talk. It was really clear, and you have made it very clear that IQCP is not mandatory, because this is frustrating to many people. So if you just don't want to go for it, you need to go back to your normal routine. So our next topic now is for Mr. Ja'far Khayari. Mr. Ja'far has obtained his bachelor's degree in medical technology in the year 2001. He acquired his master's degree in public administration in the year 2010 at King Abdulaziz University. He is currently the specialty laboratory team leader and lab surveyor in Saudi Central Board of Accreditation of Healthcare Institutions, SABAHI. He is also the assistant head in the Department of Pathology and Lab Medicine in King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center. And Mr. Ja'far is going to speak about practical lessons in quality system essentials. Mr. Ja'far.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hisham. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. And I would like to thank really and extend my thanks to the Saudi Society for Clinical Chemistry for giving me the opportunity to talk to you tonight among this wonderful lineup of presentations. And I've been attending the seminar from the beginning, and mashallah, I've learned a lot today, and so many information was discussed and addressed. As we are approaching towards the end of the seminar, maybe this will be the presentation before the last presentation by Dr. Nashat, and I'm sure he has an excellent presentation for you as well. But what I'm trying to say is that I just want you to sit back and relax. Don't let those big names, quality system essentials, quality management plan, give you some fears from practicing good practice within the lab, from addressing your quality concerns, from making sure that you are working in an environment where there is a system, where there is a setup, as opposed to working in chaos, which is both very heavily laid on either personnel, leadership, and doesn't really produce a good outcome. So what I'm saying is today's presentation, it will be very light. I'm sure that you will enjoy it, inshallah, and I promise it will be easily digested. So what are we talking about today? Quality system essentials and practical lessons to be looked at. So let's look at what is the definition of a quality management system. Normally, when we talk about quality, there are so many different concepts of quality, whether it's quality control, quality management, quality assessment, total quality management, so many different definitions, so many different names that has been evolving throughout the past couple of years within the industry of laboratory and diagnostic in general. However, there is always a backbone, there is always a structure that you can heavily rely on in executing your day-to-day operation within the laboratory. And the quality management system is basically a set of essential building blocks, as you can see them in front of you. Those building blocks, they are needed for laboratory work, operation, and in order to fulfill stated quality objectives. Now, when we talk about quality, we talk about assuring that you are delivering an accurate result in timely fashion to your customers, whether the physician, whether the patients, and so on. So this is what basically it is. Those building blocks, when you try to look at them from each and every angle, they will resemble some sort of an activity that sitting by itself alone produces only limited results. However, if you put them and arrange them in a certain manner, they will deliver a good brick, a good wall that will really prevent you from failure. You can heavily rely on that wall. So what advantages are we talking about if you have a good quality management system? Of course, the first advantage that would come to your mind is that you will be able to reduce or eliminate errors. Isn't that what we all want in a laboratory setup? We want to produce reliable results. So mainly you want to focus on reducing and eliminating errors. However, the other dimension of it is to meet the customer expectations, your patient, your physicians. What would his or her expectations be from visiting the laboratory? I mean, if I'm a physician, I'm expecting the results to arrive to me within the established turnaround time, in a good format, understood to all, communicated to me in case of critical results, and so on and so forth. For customers such as patients, I would like to, be served in a good time, not being called again for another redraw. That's part of the errors. Receiving the results, also continuing my medical journey, clinical journey throughout the hospital through the provided information from the lab, and so on and so forth. Okay, so when we talk about effectiveness and efficiency, effectiveness basically, as defined, is producing the exact results in the expected time frame, while efficiency is more focusing on resources. And now most of the focus is coming on the laboratories and on the hospital, and within the organization, the health system itself, is to produce efficient result, efficiently utilize your resources. So the quality management system will have a big help in that context. It's also a potential, and this comes, before that, there is the attainment of quality objectives. You have your quality objectives. You want to reach to a certain level within your quality indicators. For example, you want to make sure that you are reporting serving your strategic objectives, so on and so forth. So that will be the quality management system that you are relying on. And finally, and I put this at the end because this is how it has been argued in the main resource that I used for this presentation, which is the CLSI guideline. They talk about the potential for successful regulatory accreditation requirements. So I have a very interesting question, and comes from someone who has done lots of surveys, lots of visits to hospital to assure alignment with the standards, whether local accreditation agencies or international agencies. I mean, the question that always comes to my mind, the question that I always ask to my colleagues, are we really working and operating day to day to satisfy the standards? Is that how we should work in the lab? Is that what part of our vision, mission, values is to satisfy the standards? I mean, let's look down the road and see if that is really a true statement or not. So historically, and earlier I just mentioned the evolution of quality within the laboratory. So as you can see, there are certain elements that are summarized in this table, starting from quality control, quality assurance, and quality management system. So let's look at them one by one and see how are they serving and what are their limitations, and why do we really prefer to have a good standing quality management system. So the first model is the quality control, which is mainly method control. You verify the examination method by using some control materials within the method itself, and assuring that the results are correct by, looking at the instrument's internal controls. You look at the manufacturer controls material, or even if you have some external control materials. This by its own, this method as a quality control has its own limitations. And when we talk about its limitation, it does not really prevent, it does not look away from the analytical part. So it does not look at the pre-analytical concepts and a pre-analytical phase or pathway within the lab pathway, the pre-analytical phase. And I remember in Mr. Mohsen's presentation, he said that, for example, 70% of the lab errors occur in the pre-analytical phase. So this is a big chunk of errors that are waiting for you that you cannot really prevent by just doing quality control. And at the end, also the post-examination error, quality control doesn't really serve you there. And, but at the end, it was the basic, it was the foundation of the quality management plan, and it was the beginning of quality measures in the medical laboratory. That was historically looking, and it still serves some part of that purpose. While quality assurance is, you are looking at the process itself from different dimensions. And here the difference is really explained in the table, that it would really target the pre-examination process, pre-analytical aspect of the process. You are looking at the process itself. You're not looking at the method. Now we are expanding the view to look at the process from the three different steps: pre-analytical, analytical or examination, or post-examination, also including the reporting and so on. However, this method has its own, limitations, in which it does not prevent errors that occurs outside the path of workflow process listed above. So it does not really have a comprehensive way of addressing the quality of your test or quality of your system within the laboratory. And finally, we are looking at the quality management system, which is a wide system. It's a laboratory-wide system. It addresses really, it looks at too many different scopes, including the effectiveness and sustainability of the management, technical processes that support and move work through the laboratory. So from each and every single dimension, it is tackling the performance within your lab. And it has no limitation. However, I would argue one point here is mainly about the efficiency and utilization of lab tests. And we are in the era of really, focused resources rather than limited resources. We are in a more focused resources, so we really want to spend our money. We want to use our staff. We want to utilize our equipment in a very focused way, so that we can assure that we are really benefiting to the max. So here in the quality management system, you would really look at the majority of it, targeting the effectiveness, yet the efficiency part is not really at least mature enough in this at this level. So quality management system wide focus is broader than quality control, of course, as we explained, and of course quality assurance as well. So let's look at again when to consider looking at or revising or amending, modifying your quality management system. And I have the example that we are going to walk through will really explain all those different elements that you can see listed on the right side of the presentation. So what I'm saying is normally you would consider revising or introducing a quality management system whenever you are starting from scratch. So you want to start with a system, with a good system to assure a good outcome, to assure that your strategic objectives are being met. You also do that when you start a new service within the laboratory, or when you try to change an existing service. So a scenario I have right now is, for example, you have a laboratory that's considering to open a new service. What would be the step-by-step guide on order for that laboratory to proceed accordingly within the quality management system itself? So the first thing you would consider is to ask the following questions: what and who? you need to look at your organization. You are attempting to open a new service within your lab. So you need to define basically what is the mission, the vision, the goals, the values, your objectives, and your strategic plan. Why are you intending to open this service? What are the scope of the services provided within this new section, new component of the lab? In addition to that, you need to really define your organization and structure within the leadership, and you also, as you can see here, you need to define the relationship and reporting channels within your organizational chart. Next would be to ask the why question. Why? This is the phase where you do the gap analysis. What does my customers want? What is the intent of me opening this new service? Is it always money driven? Is it always financially driven? Or this is something that has been imposed on me if I'm a hospital laboratory instead of standalone laboratory? Is this service driven from the hospital leadership? No, in general, you would consider this area and do a gap analysis to find out exactly what is your current state and what is your desired state, and how are you going to reach, how are you going to bridge that gap doing the action plan. So in this area, or when you are considering your customer focus, you need to look at your external and internal customers and set the expectation right. When it comes to the physical space, do I have enough physical space? Do I have the required resources when it comes to finance, human resources, or materials? Is there some sort of an agreement that I need to do from establishing this service with basically clinical services or with physicians? There is an agreement with turnaround time or so on and so forth. So that would be the second step, or step 2, and that's customer focus. The next step would be is to consider the setup of that new area within the lab. You have a good space. I mean, despite the fact that no one would come straight and say, well, I have good or enough space within my laboratory. But however, if you manage to secure some space within your lab, then you would need to consider the design, you need to provide the space, and you consider the safety requirements when it comes to the setup of the laboratory. What safety requirements are there, negative pressure, is it an isolation area, and so on and so forth. So that is the setup when it comes to your facility and safety. Furthermore, then you would come to personnel or manpower, the human resources. You would like to identify what manpower is needed. What kind of personnel do you need? What caliber of personnel do you need? Their qualification, the required qualification. What responsibilities are they going to hold? In the context of the leadership, what responsibilities are they going to cover? The staff, or even the portfolio holders, like the quality assurance representative, the lab information specialist, and so on and so forth. And then you would acquire the required staff to fulfill your mission and go forward. And for sure, you would have to maintain the records from recruitment, from hiring, and so on and so forth. And then you would consider the procurement of your equipment, materials, products, services, and with consideration to the suppliers that are going to provide you with that. So here you would consider the selection of the supplier, the qualification of the supplier, if there are certain qualifications that needs to be done, for example, with the Saudi FDA, with importing materials from outside, evaluation of the supplier, which is something very important to be done and considered, like you are considered the customer to them, as well as you need to provide feedback about their performance back and forth to them, moving with your procurement department within the hospital. And where are you going to store those supplies or equipment or materials? Then you would do the installation of the equipment. Basically, as we all know, two important steps to consider when you install the equipment is the operation qualification and the performance qualification. Define your maintenance and do the calibration schedule as required. And step 7 is to do the processes. I mean, formalize, modify processes, policies, procedures, formats, and also deliver the initial training for the staff and do the competency assessment for them whenever they pass the time required for that. Also, another action step, which is the information management. How is the results going to be reported or recorded into the record management system, whether it's, if you are lucky enough to have a computer information system, or even if it's a paper-based documentation. You would need to consider the confidentiality of those documentation, who and whom to access those documents, and what kind of support is needed in case of there is lab information system there. Down the road, you would note that there is some issues with your production that you discover after the fact, which is basically non-conformance. So non-conformance is events that don't meet the requirements, or also that complaints that we receive from our customers. How are we going to tackle those non-conformances? What kind of reporting channels do we have? What investigation is carried on? What kind of analysis is done by the quality team or the lab leadership in order to assure that there is some sort of mitigation that will prevent such non-conformance from occurring again, which is the corrective action. And you would look at some sort of trends, if there is any trend or pattern that is being done that is causing this non-conformance. Assessments, whether internal monitoring that you do on regular basis, such as indicators within the lab, or external assessments such as PT proficiency testing, along with their corrective actions, are used to make sure that you are meeting the preset requirements, and those requirements could be regulatory or accreditation requirements. And of course, you never stop at this stage. You would always seek continual improvement, in which you subject your process to review every now and then, following any of the models that are there, whether it's IACT or whether it's Focus PDCA, or whether any of those methodologies that you are following within your hospital, to assure that you don't stop at one point. There is a continuous improvement, especially if there are some sort of trending that starts showing within your process. Documentations play a very important role, and you can see them in each and every step of the further 11 explained steps. So documentation is very important. And as you all know, there are 4 types of documents within the lab, whether it's policy, process, procedure, or forms. And this table just describes the definition of each type of document. So a policy, for example, is a statement of intent. It's a high-level document. It describes what is done in a very simple format. That is the policy. That's your commitment to conducting certain procedure. A process is a description of who does what and when. So that is just the process in which, how to execute this policy. And it provides information on how it happens here. And it's mostly it's an activities in sequence, and it can be shown flowchart. Where a procedure is really it has a description or explanation, further explanation on how to conduct the process that you have. And finally, the forms or the output are the means by which data, information, or results are captured from performing procedures and translated into an output. So I have an interesting question here, and maybe we can answer it in the next slide. Who should be the center of our focus when we are developing the quality management plan? Who should we really focus more to satisfy? And I guess I asked that question at the beginning of my presentation. I'm going to repeat it now, and I'm going to explain to you in the next slide how at least I see it from my point of view. Are we working day to day to satisfy accreditation bodies or hospital leadership or maybe laboratory leadership, or are we trying as much as we can to be very good with our resources and utilize them professionally, or we should look at the patient's point of view? So looking at this new slide that is from the updated version of the quality management system by CLSI, as you can see, looking at this diagram, the foundation of the quality management system are the regulatory and accreditation requirements. These are the basic requirements, basic safety requirements that can assure that you are aligned with the regulatory and accreditation requirements. Above that, the building blocks that we mentioned earlier, or the quality system essentials, starting from organization up until you do the assessment and continual improvement, passing through process management, equipment management, and so on and so forth. Whatever discipline you are working in the laboratory or planning to tackle within your plan, whether it's AP, chemistry, hematology, it's all the same. However, if you look at the path of workflow within starting from pre-examination, examination, and post-examination, you would see that our patient, our main customer, is the center of all those activities. And the feedback, it starts from the practitioner assessment, early assessment of the patient, until the collection of the specimen, the testing, and the report resulting, and then the practitioner response to the patient case. That is what we are mainly looking for, and that is the answer to the previous slide. We should always build around the patient. We should always consider the patient satisfaction in our policies and procedures and all the production within the lab. We know always that quality has its costs, and there is the cost of conformance, which you really want to look at and carefully try to spend much of your resources in. And this is the cost of non-conformance, where it is basically the bottom of the iceberg. If you look at the measured quality cost, it's just at the tip of the iceberg. You are looking at the PT price, the quality control, how much you are paying for inspection, maintenance, how much you are doing working with your policies, how much you are working on training your staff. However, the hidden costs are the ones that you don't want to face when you are handling lab day-to-day operation. Repeated training, reduced capacity, extra operation. You don't want to deal with recalled results. This is where most of leadership tend to spend their resources in if they don't develop a good quality management plan. So I would rather spend much on prevention and appraisal assessment rather than just working on correcting some internal or external failures. Just before I close, I think I have 3 more minutes so I can address this example, and maybe if I have time, I'll address another example. Let's look at the very basic requirement or very basic lab supplies. I mean, the one that we deal with in each and every laboratory, the blood collection tubes, the blood collection sets. If we try to look at how much we are spending, how much we are subjecting our internal processes within the lab, like if you have a hematology analyzer, you want to produce a CBC result, you will make sure that you are covered by quality control, you are doing the calibration for the equipment, you are also enrolled in a PT program, you are doing corrective action plan. You are, subjecting it to a lot of your internal resources to assure that you are getting a good result or a valuable result at the end. However, considering the pre-analytical concepts here, and if you look at most of the accreditation bodies, when they look at supplies or critical supplies, you would look at maintaining, upon receiving the blood collection sets, for example, you would look at maintaining their lot numbers, expiration dates in a record format, and then you check for meeting predefined acceptance criteria, which is subjecting is to a visual inspection. You would, if you receive the new lot of blood collection tubes, you would just visually inspect them to look if there is any evidence of cracks, evidence of leakage, there is no discoloration, and then you would pass the lot for collection of patient samples. But do you think that is enough? Is that enough really? If you are considering conducting a risk assessment, a risk assessment matrix here, as explained by Ms. Siham a while ago, it looks at the severity and the probability, like the severity of the incident and the probability. And normally when you have a process that has lots of variables, you would be on a very high level of risk, because uncontrolled variables are the ones that are very challenging to you. And when I talk about uncontrolled variables when it comes to blood collection tubes, they are subjected to transportation in temperature fluctuation, the storage conditions within.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Jaffer, but you're out of time.
I'm out of time. I will wrap up in less than a minute, Dr. Hisham. Thank you for reminding me. So how to tackle this? How to tackle those simple lab supplies, the equipment, the blood collection sets? Are you considering, for example, going the next level? Are you considering you select some random collection sets and do an initial validation so that you can pass that lot instead of just looking at visual inspection? That is what your risk assessment matrix will tell you. That is your guidance, and that is how are you going to really make sure that you are producing good results without having any pre-analytical variables impacting your performance. I guess by this I reached the end of my presentation, and I just put in front of you my references in case you want to look them up. It's a very interesting document, the CLSI document. I really recommend each and every one of us to read it carefully. It has a lot of good information for you. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jaffer. You really made it look so simple and easy. So thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the questions and answers. Now for our last speaker, Dr. Nashat Nafouri, of course, a very well-known figure. He is the chair of Healthcare Interest Group and executive officer of Saudi Quality Council. He is the regional advisor of Accreditation Canada. Nashat is a faculty member of Health Allied Sciences at King Saud University for Health Sciences and Medical Technology program in Jeddah. He's also the faculty member of American University of Cairo in Quality Management and Infection Control. He also published many scientific articles, posters, and papers in lab environmental health, quality, and patient safety in many conferences. Dr. Nashat's talk today is interesting, and it actually touches everyone. It's about the lab workforce in the era of artificial intelligence. So Nashat? Please turn on your mic.
Shukran, Dr. Hisham. Shukran. Thank you very much for the quality tip on spot to turn the mic. And I'm very happy and delighted to see the number actually of the attendees crossing the 1,733, which is a great success. Give the thumbs up to the Saudi Society of Clinical Chemistry for organizing such a lab week. And to all my laboratorian colleagues, I would say happy International Laboratory Day. It is the day where we share our contribution and our passion with the public and with all the colleagues. That's the beauty of this day. And it happened. I know it's in May, but today actually is the International Health Day. So I wish all of you healthy life and happy Ramadan to Ramadan Mubarak ala al-Jami' bi'Iznillah. I'm not sure I have the crowd in front of me in order to say, are we speaking in English or Arabic? But we, as you know me, I would like to move and juggle between the two languages, what I call it in my dictionary, English. And I would like to thank Ja'far very much for paving the road for my presentation on equality. And I'm so proud, Akhoy Ja'far, Allah Barik Fi, that you are a member, and we are proud that you are a member of the Saudi Quality Council, the Health Interest Group. I could see that the logo on your presentation. Thank you very much, and I would love everybody to become a member of this group because this is a passion. It's something to do with contributing to the community professionally. The title of my presentation has a little bit changed. I want to tell you about the fourth generation of quality, what's happening now. We are speaking of the fourth generation, and what is the artificial intelligence, and how we really prepare our task force or workforce in the new digital diagnostic era. I might take more than half an hour because this is almost a 45 to a 1 hour presentation, but I'll try my best to deliver snapshot messages from each slide. Nothing to disclose. Everything you will see it is referenced either from the articles I write or from the references from international bodies. And I like to have it as a menu. If you are going, probably majority of you have noticed in Riyadh last year, there was a restaurant that the cost of food in the restaurant cost a lot of money. So I thought of having appetizers, called appetizer about Asian quality and flavor enhancement, and having a soup of the day by giving you more about the industrial revolution and what is happening. And with the salad, we will introduce the DNA twist and the biotech revolution that re-changed and reinvent the healthcare industry. As a hot appetizer, we will be speaking about the explosion of data and informatics through the generations, what happened. And on the main course, we'll give you the global picture and the 2030 ambitious vision of the kingdom. And the second main course, we will have a zesty in artificial intelligence applications in diagnostic era. And as a dessert, we'll have the tangy skills of tomorrow's healthcare provider, especially in the lab. And the drink will be the puzzling HR Dispresso. It's not espresso, might be Dispresso, but we will see with the talk how it will look like. Okay. For sure, if we start, my colleague mentioned about the quality, but the quality is an ancient thing since of the before Christ and before 5,000 to 1,000 before Christ, where it is about the measuring establishment. Then we will start with the handicraft industries, and until after Christ started in quality control in the laws. If you know Hammurabi's laws in the Ashurian era, those were regulatory things has been started to regulate the farming at that era. And here we have from the late 13th century, we have the craftsman, and if you visit certain masjids in the east, you will notice that sometimes they will start with the stone without polishing, then they will take you through the process. That's I have seen it in one of the Islamic countries, that how they develop the columns of that masjid. So until we reach to the 28th century, this is the slides I will leave it for you to read it later on, but until we reach now the era of total quality management in the late 20th century, and now we enter the 21st century with the quality for, they call it 4.0G. Again, of course, all of us spoke about lean. Lean is not a new concept. It started in the 18th century, as you can see on the map, and those are a few figures who really pushed on the lean concept. I know there is a lot about debate about the Bill Gates, but he's on the map as one of those who really put the principle to the information and communication technology manufacturing concept and timeline, where lean is used, and how lean was very much implemented until you see today the revolution. Look at your hands and mobiles and your kids. What do they carry in just a norm time? Now we can't even catch up with the new devices that we have when it comes to the ICT. As a history of lean, United States, Japan, Germany, they started it early in the 95th century, and they provided a lot of products. You could see the timeline in front of you about the history of lean. Now, if I speak about something called the Quality Management System Standards, and which started in the late 50s, where United States Department of Defense started having standards. And that's basically after the Second World War, because they wanted to know the efficiency of the equipment, the military equipment, that how they target. Unfortunately, that quality started this way in order to standardize, maybe not to cause a mass casualty or unnecessary number of casualties at that time because of the war. And as well, after the war, Second World War, that you have many gurus have came to from the industry moved to different parts of the world to create a new models of quality management, until we receive and develop those management systems have been developed over the years to have the ISO standards. The International Standardization Organization started establishing a lot of standards in different industries. You can see that in environment, in health and safety, occupational health and safety, in the administration, in the ICT, in so many disciplines. So it is up to the industry to select and choose what kind of system they want to implement and apply. Speaking of when quality really started to show in medicine, as you can see after the 50s, where you will see in the first industrial revolution, it was all about mechanical, like trains and real roads and steam power. So that's the first. It's mostly mechanical. Then you have the mass production started in the 1850 century, where you do have a lot of people, mass number of people producing a mass number of products. And then we have the automated production, where electricity starting appearing in the mid or early 90s and maximized in the 50s. Until now, we received the fourth generation, which is the fourth generation of industry, where we will have the artificial intelligence and the big data and robotics and Internet of Things and more to come of this industry. So those are the four revolutions in the industry. Okay. Okay. Now, because I don't have the animation, it's a solid. In quality, in my childhood, I used to be the same Macintosh, which is the quality street, as you could see. The same street, but it changed different. The picture is different. And instead of becoming circle, and now it is becoming more design friendly, like more colors, unified colors. So it is something to do with the characteristic of the people as well when it comes to the quality flavor. Previously, we used to worship or respect this is the etiquette, and now we are more onto how to wrap it, what kind of ingredients we use. So the recipe might be changed, but the quality, the core things remains the same thing. The taste itself, where do I taste the quality or not? So, and here is the evolution of modern quality, and I put the DNA at the bottom. It's there. That's how do I want to link my topic to something that I spoke about earlier in different conferences. How to make quality the DNA of healthcare. That's what we wanted. My dream is to see it's embedded like the DNA in every processes. So I'm not going to talk about it because my colleague Jafar already spoke about the QC, QA, QM, and TQM model and history. In the region, in the GCC region here, where we are fortunate. Yes, when I started in 2000, people were reluctant to have any inspection on quality. So no, we are fine. There is no action. We are perfect. And now, after that, we got rid of those bad apples, and we started looking at the quality assurance and quality systems. And still, we went into the reactive mode, where we say we want the CQI, we want to seek excellence, and now we are moving to a culture, where this culture is very important if we want to achieve the vision of 2030. We want to show the global. As I say, show the heritage. When you are talking about quality, you are writing the legacy of your community or your country in the civilization book, so they would know what kind of culture and knowledge has been contributed to the entire global community. And I would say one of the best walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, COVID had showed the entire world how the kingdom could respond in such equality and artificial intelligence initiatives that have been created in less than a year, alhamdulillah, which made our community with a less number of patients admitted to hospitals, or the infection rate was one among the lowest. Yesterday I was looking, and we are proud as well to see Abu Dhabi is to be #1 at recently, just that was yesterday's data I was looking at, and Riyadh is number 16, I believe, or 15. So that's an excellent achievement because of we moving from being reactive into being proactive and having this safety culture and quality reviews. Current quality practices up to still is there. Either you have the designated quality champion, the department quality officer, part-time quality employee, committee, or the departmental quality committee, accreditation steering committee. All of them are there, and you might have sections like accreditation unit, risk management, patient safety, facility. There are so many disciplines. That's these approaches where quality are implemented now. I would say still this is a traditional thing happening. So what's next? Why we are doing this? We move to something called just culture. We want this equality. We want to be fairness. I agree with you. Always I say, who comes first, patient or employee? I would say patient always is the center of the service. All of us, we are there because of the patient. But really, what you want is you want to invest in your employee because he or she becomes #1 because they are the provider. A blind cannot lead a blind. A sick cannot treat a sick person. So they have to be healthy. And that has been proven with COVID. That's why there are so many restrictions. And now, really, it's clear that they call them heroes. Even was the global in 2020, the Patient Safety, International Patient Safety Day was mainly focusing on how important are the healthcare providers. So it's very important to have this just culture to everybody, starting with the employees. And quality system ladder to success, always, that's a slide from my colleague from CLSI, the president of the CLSI. When we say it's awareness, when we start saying awareness, then you start learning from accreditation when you adopt the accreditation as a module until it's become a normal, a living style. That's the norm. That's the style we perform. So you using it, that will make it a style of life, and that's what will create the happiness, السعادة اللي هي نحن نطمح إليها بجودة الحياة, quality of life. That's maybe you will go to inspect a laboratory or healthcare institution. You will find a very nice KPI, like the one you see. The front is shiny and everybody is dressed up and everybody is. But when you look at the backyard, you say it's like a wreck boat. Recognizing what you really need to understand is you have not to have this barrier between the good and the bad, and it's on the same ship because both of them are on the same ship. So what are the lessons learned? We want to know, recognizing what's the actual global demands nowadays, and lesson learned from other industries or other countries, and we learn and benchmark with those countries. Understanding the paradigm shift in the enterprise risk management. My colleague mentioned, and I'm happy to see our national accreditation body, SIBAHI, adopting the risk and updating the standard to include the risk management component. But because everything now is managed by risk and risk mitigation. So enterprise risk is very important in healthcare. I know it's still a concept, it's still a fresh concept to adopt, but and it's a lot of work to be done on this in this particular aspect, but it will flourish. And I would say, as the standard improves, we need from the accrediting bodies to give the time for those industries or these laboratories in order to digest this concept, because it's a lot of work when it comes to the risk. People get a lot of, many times in different institutions I visit, they still, to make it very simple, they still translate the two words are the same. In Arabic, they call it risk and hazard, they both translate it as khatar. So we have, even though a problem in the translation of the word itself, khatar. And while if I have to go through this khatar wa makhatir, risk and hazard, khatar is hazard and makhatir is a risk, or mukhatara, you will see how rich is the Arabic language in differentiating between the two. على وزن الفاعل والفعال والمفعول وهكذا. وفاعل ومخاطر. So there is another thing now with the quality that has appeared, which is adopting the organizational excellence. I want to speed up a little bit. So there is a change ahead of you. Are you ready for this big change? Now there is who's driving qualities. There is no more gurus. It's presenting the people that makes quality happen. Just don't call them gurus, because we've been doing, this is Joran, this is, yes, they have those done. They put the fundamentals, the tools for quality, but now quality depends on if you want to reduce the rate of infection in an OR, you should have a good housekeeping team, understanding the concept of infection control. If I want to say I cannot automate pre-analytical to reduce, wallahi, 70%, with my due respect to, I really like the Ustaz Mohsen presentation, but I cannot automate it. I still want to have, and to me, it's maybe personally, to me, it's unfriendly to have still a robotic extracting blood from my arm. I still want to see this smile. I would always, breaking the ice by having smile. And we are Muslims, we say, smile is a charity. So breaking the ice is very important in the healing journey of the patients. Okay. Embedding quality in every healthcare practice, that's my dream. When I see that no more policies and procedures, no more dedicated manuals, only it is the process, and within the processes, all the processes have a quality part of it, have an environment of care part of it, has an infection control and incubation phase, because it's the same task. You are performing processes, you're doing tasks, you compile them, it's a process. So why I do have different manuals? I want to see one manual which has all of this embedded in them. We have done it. It's not the difficult thing. We have done it when I was studying outside in Canada. We have done it. I could see it. These are the QC tips. These are the quality assurance tips, and these are the occupational health and safety tips. Still, I'm looking to see one institution apply this concept. Okay, service excellence. That's something happening new. There are two models in the world that we could learn from the excellence model, the EFQM and the Malcolm Baldrige. Service excellence now, it's a mandate. As you can see, even in the Ministry of Health, now one of our colleagues, I mentioned by name, Ustaz Abdul Baqi, he was وصل إلى درجة وكيل للإكسلنس في الوزارة. So الوزارة تبنت الإكسلنس module, and the rest of the government will implement the excellence module, and we should be proud that we have King Abdul Aziz Quality Award, which is built as an excellence module, and soon you will find the lab. I wish the labs could hop onto this award, and not because of the award. The beauty of it is the report that you will receive, really to tell you about your evaluation of your strategic plan, leadership, operations. So it's a comprehensive module for excellence. And this is how we climb the ladder. When we started the accreditations in 2002 and requirements, now we have a high reliability organization, and now you look at the business excellence. And one thing of the business excellence module is you have to have and to address the risk and have a mitigation. So organizational excellence and digital knowledge, they are going along together in the next few years. I already spoke about the 4 phases of the industrialization. I want to show you how fast the information and communication technology. Look, the years before when we spoke about quality development, it was centuries. But here, within years, only within years, it's not even less than 20 years, the revolution in information and communication, it's phenomenal. What do we do next? I want to introduce to you something. Okay, in the digital era, we used to have those three monkeys. I didn't hear, I don't know. Now we do have people, sometime I say, the fourth ape is found where he is only focusing on his iPad or iPhone or mobile. So this is something that I would say the sum of three. Here we have to be careful when it comes to the fourth monkey or ape. Biotechnology is a new emerging science. It started in the 90s and it's growing, and that's why you will see so many things happening. Before, when I was a student, we were talking about when the world will be ready for a messenger RNA vaccination, and apparently happened in my lifetime. I see it now. We are adopting and accepting a messenger RNA in our bodies as an outcome of biotechnology. Biotechnology is happening in every industry now, from agriculture to the life sciences research. So there is a phenomenal future for the lab to learn from biotechnology, and I believe that theranostics has already started. When I was speaking about theranostic in 2002, people say, what is kind of this? This is gibberish to us, which is simply, it's the pocket, the right therapy at the right time to the right patient. And this is really concern me. I'm afraid that shifting all the diagnostic from the lab side to the bedside, here we lose the battle, actually. That's a risk, a big risk, I would say, the diagnostic industry should be looking at, not to have pulled the carpet from underneath them. Nanotechnology is the same thing. Okay, what is equality has to do with the DNA? Very simple. And in 2059, every person's DNA is recording in the genome database. We started now with the vaccine. And this is a book, I leave it between your hands, written by Beth Martin, about the quality DNA and what is the future is hiding for us. Lab is as a hub of big data, crunching. So many things this data that you will be accumulating over the years can be translated into knowledge and translated into applications and translated into so many things in ICT or Internet of Things, IoT, or the blockchains, and all that is going to happen, and it is happening simultaneously while we are talking. And this is to prove between the triology of the DNA, and so I would say now humanity, the entire humanity is governed by 6 characters, which is the 0, 1, and ACGT, which is the components of the DNA, and 0, 1 is the digital for any communication. You could see it over the year. We're moving from diseases to diagnosis to management and to preventive on your mobile. Now you can test your heart rate and you can test your glucose level on your mobile. This is the two digits, set of digits has combined together to reshape the medicine and health in the 21st century. And where are we from all of this? What are the long vision? You have to look on where are we on the global map nowadays? And that's why United Nations now, people speaking of KPIs, key performance indicator, I would say now it's the time to look at something called HDI. And there is an article I wrote about it. I will reference it at the end. A human development index. People will look at your country or your community from this perspective. They want to put you as what? Human development, life expectancy, and expected years of schooling, and so on. So now we want to compare the country to the country in order to say this is a happy society, or this is a healthy society, or a poor society, or rich society, and so on. We want to see the kingdom on the map, and that's why the ambitious vision adopted those what you call it, the sustainable development goals, those 17 goals. I urge everyone of you is to look at them and look how to link this to your daily business, because those 17 goals will impact your life and your children's life in the coming years. And that's why you could see the national policy consists of Vision 2030 about having easy access to care, and here it says and have improved the quality of services and provided by healthcare. Next, I want to tell you about artificial intelligence in very short definition, where you could see that I would skip the definition.
Because your time
is almost done. I will skip it. I will skip as many slides as I could, Doctor. So here, I give you a bundle of applications of platform of the artificial intelligence. Here, where we could help a poor community where we could not reach them to have a portable diagnostic. That's one of the application area. Another area here where we could see the disease at a cellular level, or you can do a genetic testing, ordering it from home while you are on your mobile, and so on. As well, theranostic has arrived. Yes, you could order from home. As well, you could have a healthy life. Even you can stop eating by just looking at the calories, how much you consume. And still we just started in our restaurant calculating the calories. And soon you will find a fork that tell you you had enough, or slow in order to digest better. Similar things for clouding, and now we have what we call it, clouding communities have been started to talk about what new diagnosis or what new dimensions to we open. Workforce, are they dissolving or evolving with the artificial intelligence? In 2020 or 2015, there was a set of skills that needed. As you could see, emotional intelligence is very important in 2020. So still we are doing we are still in need. Cognitive flexibility is another aspect. So these skills are needed for a new workforce. Will AI takes over? That's what they say. Maybe in 2026, nearly 100% of medical records will be interpretation by artificial intelligence. No need to have it documented. Here, I would say job security. The least safest jobs are the telemarketing. But look at the safest jobs on the other side. You will see the mental health, occupational therapy, all of these related to the healthcare. So healthcare will never, I say, it will be impacted, but it will be, the services will be enhanced, but not the workforce. Bill Gates say robots should be taxed like a human in the future. That's another hit. Jack Ma thinks AI is going to cause more pain than happiness. I would say maybe not. That's an economist's point of view. Dr. Talal Abu Ghazal would say, teach your kids الذكاء الاصطناعي. Finally, in conclusion, what we need is we need to balance between artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and job shift risk and social responsibility. It's very important. Another thing is we have quality 4G. Isn't really a story about technology and leaps. It is about how the technology improves culture, collaboration, competency, and leadership. And that's always put you to remember that healing journey starts with a human being. It starts by you, by me, by everybody in this room. These are the references. If you would like to read them, the overlooked of quality cost programming. One of the wishes, Akhoy Ja'far, I would like to see the most department that doesn't have a quality which cuts all the budget because they did not understand quality very much, which is the finance department or the Idara al-Maliya, we call it. Finally, I would like to acknowledge my family, the Saudi Quality Council and the Quality Logic team and our organizing team and my wonderful colleague, Dr. Hisham, for chairing this session. Thank you very much. And always remember that healthcare is composed of multicultural, and this will never evade forever. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nashat, for this wonderful talk, and also scary somehow, or has some scary information. We're going to listen to the questions and answer right now. So I will read some questions here. We have a, I don't know if would Ms. Siham and Mr. Jafar appear on the, or turn their cams on? Okay. I appreciate if for all speakers, if you can turn off your mic and only the speaker to whom the question is. Okay, thank you so much. So we do have here a question to Dr. Nashat from Kamal Al-Bloui. IQCP, sorry, so this is to Ms. Siham. IQCP, you said it's optional versus external quality control. So the question here is, what is the best for me to choose?
Thank you, Ustad or Dr. Hisham. The best is to go with the regulation and manufacturer instruction. Just follow what they are asking you to do. Is to do your quality control with 2 levels, with the frequency instructed by the manufacturer or the hospital regulation or accreditation requirements. But if you have a cost-effective, like a private labs, or you have a shortage of supplies, you can work with less than these requirements and do your IQCB. So IQCB is like a plan B for me. I consider it a plan B if you have some obstacles in your supply or cost, whatever, in your organization. Thank you.
Dr. Hisham, your voice.
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. You returned it back to me. So a question to you, indeed, from Umesh Kumar. He said, Dr. Nashat, what challenges do you expect when AI-based process controls will happen in the future?
Could you repeat the question? Let me digest the question very much. I want to digest the question first, before I answer. Could you repeat it, Dr. Hisham?
Okay, so I think he's afraid of what's, and me too, indeed. What's going to happen to us? What will artificial intelligence kill jobs in the future? How will it affect the future of workforce?
As I mentioned to you, I could see nowadays even there are products coming to the market of theranostic that pulling the what we call it pulling the rug from underneath the laboratory and going to the clinical, to the bedside. Even though there are so many technologies now happening that giving a prophylaxis, so you don't need to have a blood culture because it takes 48 hours to 72 hours. So I would say artificial intelligence will not overcome your job, but how you will equip yourself being smart in order to analyze, to take the data in order to start something new. So let us take an example of the pre-analytical. Still, I don't think humanity is ready to accept a blood extractor, robotic, over a human. So if I will focus the forces on those 70% on the pre-analytical, and have it. Maybe we need to reinvent the jobs as well. And instead of us just being sitting in the lab, maybe it is coming despite the regulatory. Look, are so many aspects. So you would have to go and merge between two things like home health care at the same time is the point of care. So still it is done by the lab, but it is a different job. You don't have to be in the lab. So approaching patients nowadays, still we do have patient segmentation. You and I know as a physician that palliative patients still cannot go to the lab. So the service has to move from the lab to them. So how we will adapt these things and reformulate the jobs is very important. What Ms. Siham is working in the institution where she works as a public health lab. The public health lab are very important. Until now, in the kingdom, we don't have any licensed public health lab, aside from the CBC. I say, and a private sector, for an example. So we need to open the dimensions. There are so many things that could be created, but it needs thinking. It needs leaders to sit together, and not only leaders, lab workers sit together, the community, like what we have now in the society, discuss and brainstorm, and the big hospitals like where Jafar is working, where I am working, in order to see what is next. What is next for us? Where is now? We know that the government give us this we call it the triple P, private-public partnership, where we could help in order to say it will not be a monopoly. At the same time, it will be a collaborative work, because COVID has proven that we need to work together. Right? Or am I correct or wrong? Maybe I'm wrong, but proven that we need to work together, not only testing. Now, I can give you so many examples of remodeling things, re-engineering things. We need to re-engineer things. I was telling this long time ago that molecular biology is a mandate, and it's an important aspect of every single, nowadays, aside from tumor marker. What do we have a new test for cancer prognosis or cancer diagnosis, aside from the routine things? So we need to explore these areas and find new jobs and find new techniques. Thank you. Sorry, I took look. Your voice. Your voice.
We can't hear you, Dr. Hisham.
Sorry. So the question is for Mr. Jafar. What is the difference between deviation from policy and procedures and non-conformance?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hisham. This is a very interesting question. I'm still reconsidering after Nashat's presentation to change career, really. Psychology really sounds a good paying job in the future. However, and I do believe, just a quick comment there, I do believe that the lab heroes will prevail. They will always be able to produce the results in the time required and prove themselves on each and every aspect when it comes to the healthcare. So going back to your question, Dr. Hisham, I mean, this concept is mainly, confusing to some of the staff, and I get this question most of the time. So when you say deviation from policy and procedure, deviation, you are attempting to break the policy by getting an approval from the policy maker, the person who signs and approves the policy, in order to attempt to do something that doesn't normally do. For example, if we look at like suboptimal specimen, a specimen that is very precious, a CSF sample that you have a clerical error that comes with it. So you are attempting to do that. You are seeking approval to proceed and test the specimen and reflect that on the end product, on the report that you are resulting, that you are dealing with a suboptimal specimen. While non-conformity is something that you discover after the fact. It is a failure to meet the requirement. You normally discover non-conformance by, through complaints from physician, from patient, or you even find it like when you receive a PT result that you need to do some corrective action plan, or even sometimes from management reviews. That's how we discover non-conformance. So those two concepts are totally different. You're still on mute, Dr. Hisham.
This is okay. So the last question is for Ms. Teham, and the question is: what if a failure occurs after IQCP process has been completed? So should the QCP or the quality control plan that was written, should it be discarded, or we should just evaluate what we were doing?
No, the errors happens in the concept in the laboratory, and maybe everybody agree with me. Laboratory is a rich culture of errors. So errors will happen, no matter if we are doing QC plan or not, but we have to re-evaluate our risk assessment, recheck the potential errors, maybe something dropped by mistake or unintentionally, we didn't look at it. Sometimes errors or problems will raise some errors that was hidden and wasn't seen. No, don't ignore your QC plan. It is correct if you did it. Correct yourself. Do a root cause analysis, do a corrective and preventive actions, and then go to your plan again and risk assessment again and try to re-evaluate it and rewrite it again to close all these gaps. Or as I mentioned in my lecture, residual errors that we didn't catch it when we wrote our QC plan in the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I would like to comment on Dr. Nashat lecture. Really, I thank you both, Dr. Nashat and Mr. Jafar, for your impressive Saraha lectures. I really like it, both of them. And Dr. Nashat, I like your slide when you say we would like to have a manual has 4 chapters: quality, infection control, safety, and occupational health. Really, I am 100% agree with you. I hope we can do it in one of our organization. And for example, me, as I'm working in public health authority, I would like to have it in my organization, and it could be a model for other organizations. I really totally agree with you with this concept. Thank you so much all.
Thank you so much. It was really an interesting session and with great 3 lectures. So thank you very much everyone. والآن نحن الآن مع اجتماع الجمعية العمومية مع رئيس الجمعية الدكتورة سامية سكي. تفضلي دكتورة سامية.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أولاً أحب أشكر اللي وراء الكواليس علي ومها who made this event successful. I have to thank all the moderators, all the speakers for such a successful event. نبدأ الآن باجتماع الجمعية العمومية. Okay, so this would be next. It's in Arabic. Arabic is the official language. I'll sum up at the end in English. زملائي في مجلس الإدارة، هذه الدورة الثانية للجمعية السعودية للكيمياء السريرية. الدورة الأولى كانت من عام 2014 لعام 2018. الآن هذه الدورة الثانية 2018-2022. الزملاء الكرام معايا الدكتور علي العثيم، الدكتور زهير أوان، الأستاذ نواف، الدكتورة سلام سعد الدين، بروفيسور خالد الحربي، والدكتور علي الشنقيطي، والدكتورة جيهان جاويش، والدكتور وليد العميم. مستشفيات مختلفة، academics working in labs. أهنئ الجميع. الجمعية حصلت العام الماضي اللي على المركز الثالث في فئة ألف في فئة ألف في تقييم الجمعيات تحت رعاية الهيئة السعودية. الشكر موصول للجميع، أعضاء مجلس الإدارة، الأعضاء العاملين اللي عملوا معنا، المتحدثين في جميع ندواتنا والمؤتمرات، الناس اللي تقدموا بأفكار بعضها ممكن يعني تحقق، بعضها إن شاء الله في طريقه إلى التحقيق. الهيئة قامت حفل مختصر جدا فقط لرؤساء الجمعيات وتكريمهم. إن شاء الله في القريب العاجل جميع الجمعيات في المملكة، سواء علمية، مهنية، صحية، خيرية، لازم تعمل تحت وزارة العمل والتنمية الاجتماعية. الجمعيات العلمية اللي تعمل الآن تحت مظلة الهيئة سوف تنتقل وتعمل تحت وزارة العمل إداريا، لكن علميا سوف تكون تحت الهيئة. فحنراجع اللائحة الأساسية سريعا فقط، لخصتها لكم لأنها أكثر من 30 صفحة. اللائحة الأساسية فيها 5 أبواب، 68 مادة و12 فصل. الباب الأول يعرف لنا بالتعريفات والتأسيس وأهداف الجمعية والإشراف، من المشرف على الجمعية. الفصل الأول فيها تعريفات وتأسيس، الفصل الثاني أهداف وإشراف، فيها 5 مواد. الباب الثاني التنظيم الإداري للجمعية وأحكام العضوية والجمعية العمومية ومجلس الإدارة، مين يمثل مجلس الإدارة، أي عضو عامل في الجمعية ممكن يترشح يكون في مجلس الإدارة. الجمعية العمومية الجميع لهم الحق بإدلاء أصواتهم. التنظيم الإداري وكيف تكون الجمعية، الهيكل الإداري يكون رئيس للجمعية وفي منسق إداري أو مدير إداري وسكرتير وكذا. هذه كلها إن شاء الله تطبق وانس إنه الجمعية تروح تحت الوزارة. الباب الثالث في الفصل التنظيم المالي كمان، كيف طلب التبرعات أو الهبات من المؤسسات أو الشركات وكيف طريقة الصرف. كيف التعديل على اللائحة أو إذا الجمعية لأي سبب كان ممكن تحل. الباب الخامس هي أحكام عامة تحكم الجمعيات. هذه اللائحة الأساسية وانس إنها تكون أبروفد من الوزارة، إن شاء الله سوف توضع على الويب سايت حق الجمعية وموقع الجمعية الإلكتروني. نستعرض النشاطات اللي أقيمت في الربع الأول. ويبينارز، جورنال كلابز، يوم توعوي مع اليوم العالمي للأمراض النادرة. السيمينار بالتزامن مع أنه أسبوع الجودة العالمي قدم عشان شهر رمضان المبارك، وإن شاء الله الأسبوع القادم يكون جورنال كلاب، بعدها يمكن يكون يوم توعوي رمضان أو شيء، بعدين إن شاء الله نتوقف في شهر رمضان. الهيئة السعودية للتخصصات الصحية أطلقت نظام العضويات الموحد. نظام العضويات الموحد اللي هو جميع الجمعيات العاملة تحت الهيئة، الأعضاء في الجمعيات هذه ممكن يشتركوا في عضوية الجمعية عن طريق لينك تربطهم ممارس بالعضوية. فالCME تنزل أوتوماتيك، أي شيء آخر ينزل أوتوماتيك. الآن الهيئة في طور التجريب لهذا، لكن موجود لينك، والأخوان أعتقد حيحطوا رابط التسجيل والخطوات إن شاء الله تكون على موقع الجمعية لما تكون بروفايدد من الهيئة. من العام القادم أو بنهاية هذا العام حيكون يعني العضوية مرتبطة بنظام ممارس. إذا أنت تعمل في المختبرات تحب تسجل في الجمعية، تجيك الساعات والكريدت وكذا، لازم التسجيل عن طريق نظام العضويات. توجد مبالغ لكنها رمزية جدا يعني مقارنة بجمعيات أخرى. الجمعية لا يعني تدعو أعضائها إنه ممكن تدعم الأبحاث من خلال نشر الأبحاث، لكن نشر الأبحاث هذه لازم تراجع من قبل اللجنة العلمية. الحمد لله في لجنة علمية حتكون موجودة على موقع الأسماء على موقع الجمعية قريبا مع الشروط. اللجنة العلمية ترأسها بروفيسور سهاد باحجري. الدكتورة سهاد يعني علم في رأسه نار، غنية عن التعريف، أول بروفيسور ميديكال بايوكيمستري في المملكة، وتعمل الآن في جامعة الملك عبد العزيز متعاقدة معهم في جدة. رسمياً الآن يوجد 3 مجموعات عاملة تحت الجمعية. مجموعة البري أناليتيكال جروب يرأسها الدكتور وليد التميمي. مجموعة لو كاربوهيدرات سوسايتي يرأسها الدكتور عبد الهادي بيمة. مجموعة السعودي Point of Care Testing Association سبوكتا ترأسها الدكتورة هبة غاري. سبوكتا يمكن مؤخرا شفتوا عملوا كم ويبينار، يعني الدكتور عبد الهادي إن شاء الله حيعطينا awareness وحيعمل كمان webinars in the near future. Pre-analytical الدكتور وليد كمان حينظم إن شاء الله workshop or webinar. هذه دعوة لجميع الزملاء والزميلات. If you are interested in a group, you have done a lot of work in such a group, talk to your colleagues, formulate a group write back to the society وإن شاء الله ونحن ندعمكم. هي أساس لتشجيع العاملين اللي عندهم interest in one area or one group, they can work together. الجمعية تصدر مجلة، المجلة 3 مرات في السنة إن شاء الله. This is our aim، يعني هدفنا باللغة العربية، توعوية علمية إن شاء الله، نقول إن شاء الله العام القادم. المجلة عادة المواضيع تكون تغطي الأشياء اللي تكون بالشهر، يعني فرضاً الشهر اللي فات نيوبورن سكرينينج، هذا الشهر عن الجودة كذا. الجمعية تقدم حافز مادي بسيط للي يحب يشترك وينشر ينشر في المجلة. حتكون في موقع الجمعية الدعوة للمشاركة بالمقالات لكل عدد، إيش اللي مطلوب، كم عدد الكلمات أو الصفحات والتايم فريم. طبعاً بما أن الجمعية جمعية تطوعية، يعني non-profit society، يوجد منصة اسمها منصة تطوع برضها تحت الوزارة، ممكن تسجلوا فيها لأن الجمعية مسجلة الآن رسميا في منصة تطوع. فلو عندنا أنشطة أو كذا ممكن تسجلوا في المنصة وتحسب لكم تطوع. المملكة طبعا تطمح إنه زيادة عدد فرص التطوع والناس اللي يعملوا عمل تطوعي. زي ما انتم عارفين نحن نتعاون مع الجمعيات في المملكة، الجمعية السعودية للتغذية السريرية، الجمعية السعودية لعلوم المختبرات الإكلينيكية، والجمعية السعودية للطب الوراثي. نحن جزء من الأرب فيدريشن كلينيكال بيولوجي، نحن جزء من الانترناشونال فيدريشن كلينيكال كيمستري، ونتعاون مع الأمريكان سوسايتي فور كلينيكال باثولوجي. الأفكار المقترحات جميعها نستقبلها. If you have good ideas, if you have any suggestion, please write back. عندكم فكرة لوركشوب، فكرة لويبينار، فكرة ليوم تطوعي، please write back. هذه آخر سلايد. I'll sum up in English for the non-Arabic speaking. This is the second cycle for the Saudi Society Clinical Chemistry. This cycle started in 2018 and it will finish in 2022, early in the year, March or April. The society has organized a lot of activities. We are open to suggestions. We are open to discussions. If you have any idea or you want to share it or you want to hold a workshop, you want to present as well, please write back to the society. The emails is there, the websites, Twitter, Facebook. The society as well support young researchers. If you have a research you want to publish, we will support in funding it, provided that it is approved by the research committee. The society has as well affiliations with different societies. The society as well now, as it is part of the Saudi Commission for Health Specialty, there'll be a unified system for registering in the society. This will be published soon at the website. And I wish you all the best and luck for the rest of the year. If you have any questions, you can send them now. فين الموبايل؟ لأنه حيرسلوا عليه. هذا مو حاكي. بعض الزملاء تكلموا عن أن الندوات تكون باللغة العربية. ما في مانع أبداً، ممكن نقيم بعض الندوات باللغة العربية. اللي لديه أفكار أو كذا ممكن يرسل لنا ونتكلم معهم. Okay, we have a question as well from Mr. Komar. Does the SSCC have training program in QMS for Saudi staff? Well, we'll have it for Saudis and non-Saudis. If you are working in the laboratories, we support all our colleagues in the laboratory field. So this is a good idea. Maybe I can discuss it with some of the speakers today and we can organize something, but this will, of course, it will take time until it comes to light. Okay, from Mr. Komar again as well, like the RCBA and CLIA, we need to have Saudi regulations for laboratory tests. Is the SSCC working on this? I know that at least the BOCT group are working to formulate some guidelines. We have now some eminent speakers here from MOH, Ms. Siham Zaid. We have others from Sibahi who are surveyors. Maybe we can join together and we can see we can use some guidelines, but until this happens, the international guidelines are very useful and very good. We can customize it maybe later for our work. Inshallah, by the end of the year, we should have our annual symposium. I'm not sure if it will be virtual or we'll have it on site. It depends on the situation, but inshallah, we'll say it will be better. So we'll announce this maybe around July, August, at least 4 months before the annual meeting. If we don't have any more questions, Ali?
Yes, Doctor, no more questions.
With no more questions, then would like to close this session, would like to close this seminar. Again, it was really an interesting day, very informative presentations, outstanding speakers, excellent moderators. Thank you for sticking to the time most of the time. Thank you for accepting the invitations to present at SSCC, sharing your experience with us. I have to thank Ali and Maha for making this activity feasible. They are as well volunteers. And at the end of the day, I'd like to thank you all, wish you good health and good night.